Good day, one and all. Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program with Lady Top Hat. In the last episode, I showed you the training mission called Construction Basics, which just basically took you to the space vehicle assembly building where we put some different parts together to make a rocket. I'm now going to start by showing you the Flight Basics tutorial, which I won't complete because it's a pain. So here you will learn the basics of flying a spacecraft in Kerbal Space Program. In this tutorial, flight instructor Gene Kerman will take you through the essential flight controls and instruments required to launch a simple rocket to an almost respectable altitude. Let's start. So the important thing is that this tutorial, whilst it's on the ground, is very helpful. I will inform you of the part where it becomes less helpful. Just a quick note, we do have 3 male astronauts on board. You can tell that they're male by the pointed hairstyle that they have at the front. However, in the later episodes where I'll go into playing the full game, I'll show you how you can select female astronauts. And that is an option, so hurrah for Kerbal. Okay, so let's listen to what Gene Kerman has to say, and whatever he misses out, I'll fill in the gaps. So, welcome to the Kerbal Space Center launch facility. I'm Gene Kerman, and I will teach you the basics of piloting a spacecraft. I trust you already checked the basic construction tutorial. If not, I recommend you do so before going through this one. If you're ready to go, press next. Basic flight controls. Flying a spacecraft is all about being in control of a generally very chaotic situation. As a pilot, your main flight controls will affect the pitch, roll and yaw of the ship. Let's look at those first. Okay. So you've already seen me doing this in Flight Simulator and Elite Dangerous. But basically we've got pitch, roll and yaw, which are all shown down here. Yes, you can see that down here. So we've got pitch. Hello. Oh, I've got to... Oh, okay. I can only do pitch. Next. Yaw. Next. Roll. Okie doke. By controlling pitch, yaw and roll together, you can keep the ship in a controlled level flight. Right, let's look at another basic thing. The throttle. The throttle control affects the output power of the ship's engines. More throttle means more thrust, and therefore more speed and lifting power. Note that throttle will only affect engines that can be throttled, like liquid engines. Solid boosters don't have any throttle control and will burn at top capacity until their fuel runs out. Holding the ship at full throttle over a long period of time can cause the engines to overheat and will eventually explode if that heat isn't managed. Throttle. So we've got left shift, left control, we've got throttle max, which is Z, and throttle cutoff, which is X. So you can see here is my throttle. Throttle max, throttle X, and I can go up in little increments. Using control and left shift. And there we have it. Okay, next. Throttle plus pitch, roll and yaw are the main controls you need to master for a successful crash-free flight. Remember that all of these controls have a limited amount of effectiveness, so bigger, heavier ships will probably respond much more sluggishly to the controls than a little small one. It's also good to keep in mind that as stages are separated from the ship, it will become lighter and therefore easier to control. So let's look at the rest of the flight controls. Flight controls SAS. SAS stands for Stability Augmentation System, although Kerbal astronauts usually refer to it as Sickness Avoidance Scheme. Whatever it stands for, what it does is try to stop the ship from spinning around using the computer-controlled auto-torque drive compensator technology to counteract the rotation of the ship. SAS can be activated momentarily by holding down the F or toggled by pressing the T. So, looking down here, there's my SAS. So I can toggle it on and off with T and activate it slightly with the F. Alright. It's also worth noting that a skilled pilot doesn't have to rely on an SAS module to keep a ship steady. Alright, flight control RCS. RCS stands for Reaction Control System. It consists of small thrusters that help control the ship's orientation and translation. The RCS can be activated by pressing the R key. Give it a try. Okay, here we go. Here's RCS is lit up. Mind that for the RCS to do anything, your ship must have RCS thrusters and monopropellant tanks installed. RCS is particularly useful when you're out in space, as aerodynamic control system surfaces tend not to work very well outside the atmosphere. Okay, staging. In flight, all the planning you put into the staging sequence of your ship comes into practice. From launch to the final deployment of the descent parachute, you can control the activation of several of the ship's parts by activating stages. Now they're all here. All my stages. The stage indicator on the lower left corner, here. There's a purple light at the moment. Because he's locked our controls. One more thing on staging. If the automatically generated stage setup, or even one made by you, is causing strife, or you just changed your mind about something, you can edit the stage sequence on the fly. Ha ha ha. No need to go back to the assembly facility. Alright. What he means is that I can drag and drop this up and down like that and change the order. Okay. The nav ball down here. An important part of flying is knowing how your ship is oriented and where it's going. A good pilot is always aware of the ship's attitude, as it's called, and its velocity vector. The big round instrument on the lower centre of the screen is called the nav ball. This device sums up most of the critical information needed for proper, death-free flight. Here you see the ship's nose in relation to the horizon, as well as its heading, compass bearing, and speed. You also get several icons that indicate things like your current velocity, but we'll have a look at those later. Right. Flight instruments. Golly! We're not going to have a chance to fly at this rate. On the upper part of the screen you have your altimeter, here, a vertical speed, here, and atmosphere gauges, here. The altimeter will show the distance to the planet's surface at sea level. This means the actual surface may be higher up, so watch out for the ground when landing. I did just crash in the mountains recently. The altimeter will show the distance... Your vertical speed gauge shows how fast your altitude is changing. When launching, it's considered best to keep this gauge pointing up. The atmosphere gauge indicates how deep the ship is in the planet's atmosphere. This helps you know if the ship is high enough for orbiting without losing speed to air resistance, or judge how effective wings and control surfaces will be. Crew! Down here, see that I have placed myself strategically as a member of the crew. Hello! It's generally a good idea to try and keep them alive throughout the flight, even if they're not exactly expert astronauts, or even much good at it, for they can gain experience and eventually attain a better level of skill as pilots, engineers, or scientists, depending on their role. At higher levels, they gain more abilities, making them more valuable assets for your space program as a whole. You can check the role and skill level for each Kerbal in Map View, which is the M key, or clicking on the Kerbal button on the right edge of the screen. Okay, we won't do that right now. Ready to launch. Okay, but enough talk. I'll unlock all the flight controls and you'll be clear to launch. Actually, all controls except for one. Let's make it interesting. You'll not be able to use the SAS control. Try to keep the ship steady yourself. At any time, you can press escape to pause the game. In the pause menu, you can restart the flight or end the tutorial and return to the main menu. For now, set your throttle to max and hit space when ready to launch. For this particular ship, you will need to do it twice, once to start the engines and once more to release the clamps. So, off we go. So watch down here, my speed, my thrust is set to maximum. I've now got a green flashing light instead of a purple light, so he's released our controls, and I'm going to press space. Ready to launch? 3, 2, 1, ignition. And up we go. Now practicing all of the controls we just discussed. Picture, roll, etc. Okay. Now I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is instead draw your attention to these green bars over here. You can see that my liquid fuel is running out. If I press space, it will jettison the liquid fuel tanks that have launching into space. Splendid. Oh, we've spent those. We can get rid of those as well. Okay, and we're up at 16,000 meters right now. Lovely. Everything is lovely. Okay, you're now out of the thickest part of the atmosphere. You see, we're up here now. Now's a good time to steer your ship towards the horizon in order to widen your orbit. Point your ship where the blue and orange parts of the nav ball meet. Slowly. You can see I'm just going to line those up there. When manoeuvring, keep in mind it will meet less resistance now that there is no atmosphere, so be gentle. There we have it. Right, we're now officially in space. This is no time to celebrate. Press M. Hey! And see your current trajectory. So here we are. You can see that that our orbit is increasing because we still do have fuel. And we've got a very nice trajectory there. So let's just open that up. And he's saying that we should close our orbit. Now, all the other times I've tried this tutorial, that never worked. So let's see. No. See? And I've run out of fuel, which means that I can never achieve that now. So this is why I don't like this tutorial. It's almost designed that it's impossible to achieve. So anyway, if we'd got the nose position right, if we'd managed to get everything right, which is not how the tutorial tells you how to do it, then this blue line would have ended up as a closed circle and we would have been in orbit. However, I did want to show you the different stages of the rocket and this beautiful map view and creating orbits. So that's what all of the different views look like. Let's just enjoy. In fact, I'm going to jettison the liquid fuel. There we are. And there are our 3 astronauts very happily floating around. And we're even still gaining a bit of altitude as well. So, that was it. That was the different stages of launch and obtaining orbit around Kerbin. For now, I'm going to bid you a fond farewell and a tally-ho!